Welcome to another CRM Position podcast training. Today we're diving into something that's causing quite a buzz in the Salesforce world, the Agentforce Specialist Certification.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a hot topic.
For sure, and we know you're all about leveling up your Salesforce skills efficiently.
Hmm.
So we've um, we've sifted through tons of documentation and expert insights just to bring you the core concepts of this certification.
Yeah, I can definitely feel like drinking from a fire hose with all the info out there. So
Totally.
it's important to boil it down to what really matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for someone who's maybe, just starting to explore AI in Salesforce, what is it about this certification that makes it so valuable?
It's really about becoming that expert in building and managing these intelligent agents that live within Salesforce.
So you're not just learning about AI, you're actually learning how to build it and use it.
Exactly. You're taking that knowledge and putting it into action.
That's cool.
Think of it like having a whole team of AI assistants all working alongside you right in your CRM.
Oh, wow. I like that. Okay, so before we get into all the practical stuff, I have to ask about data privacy with all the recent discussions about AI and sensitive information.
Oh, for sure. That's a big one.
Where does the Einstein trust layer fit into all of this?
The Einstein trust layer is super important, especially when we're talking about generative AI. It's essentially a security framework that's kind of woven into every interaction.
So it's kind of like a built-in safety net.
Yeah, exactly. And this ensures that when you're using these generative AI features, that large language model, the LLM, it doesn't actually retain any of the data that you feed it.
Okay, so the AI can learn from my data,
Yeah,
but it's not going to store it or use it for anything else.
exactly. It's all about protecting that sensitive information.
That makes sense. And what about, are there like measures in place to make sure that the AI's responses are, appropriate and not going to offend anyone?
Absolutely. Yeah, so the Einstein trust layer includes toxicity detection, which basically acts as a filter for the AI's responses, making sure they're free of offensive language or anything inappropriate.
Okay, that's good to know. So it's like a multi-pronged approach to make sure that AI is being used responsibly,
Exactly. Responsible AI is key.
especially when you're dealing with sensitive customer data.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, how is all of this, generative AI, how is it revolutionizing sales and service applications in CRM?
So let's take Sales Cloud Einstein as an example. Imagine you just finished a long discovery call with a potential client.
Okay.
And instead of having to manually summarize all those key points and takeaways, Einstein for Sales does that automatically for you.
Oh, wow.
It can pull out those important details, identify action items, even schedule follow-up meetings.
Wait, so it can actually listen to a call and understand what's being said?
It analyzes the conversation, identifies patterns, and even provides insights to help you improve your sales techniques.
That's amazing. It's like having a super-powered sales assistant.
It is. It's like having an AI sales coach who's listened to thousands of calls and knows exactly what works.
That'd be incredible. And what about on the service side? How is generative AI changing things there?
Think about all those routine customer inquiries like password resets or basic troubleshooting questions. Einstein for Service can handle a lot of that automatically
Through chatbots or?
through chatbots or by suggesting responses to agents.
Okay.
This frees up human agents to focus on those more complex or nuanced issues.
Right. So it's all about efficiency and making things easier for everyone involved.
Exactly, and ultimately improving that customer experience.
That makes sense. But how do we as users actually control all this AI magic? Where does Prompt Builder come into play?
Prompt Builder is essentially your command center for shaping how generative AI works within Salesforce.
So it's kind of like teaching the AI to understand what we need.
Yes, you're providing the AI with instructions and guidance so it can give you the best possible results.
So instead of just hoping for the best, we're actually taking control and shaping the outcomes.
Exactly, and you do this by creating something called prompt templates, which are basically sets of instructions for the AI.
Okay.
You define the inputs, the desired outputs, even the tone of the language you want the AI to use.
Oh, so I can actually specify whether I want my AI assistant to sound formal or more casual.
Exactly. You have that level of control. And here's where it gets even more powerful.
Right.
You can actually ground your prompts with Salesforce data.
Ground them.
Yeah, it means you're connecting those instructions to specific records fields or even automated workflows.
Okay, can you give me an example of how this grounding actually works in the real world?
Sure. Let's say you want the AI to draft a personalized email to a prospect. You could create a prompt template that says something like, draft an email to contact name, introducing our new product name.
Okay.
Highlight the key benefits relevant to their industry. The AI will then automatically pull that specific data from the contact product and industry fields within Salesforce.
Oh, so it's like it's pulling all the relevant information together and creating this super personalized message.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
tailoring the output based on the existing data in your CRM.
that's super cool. And are there different types of prompt templates available?
Yes, Salesforce provides different types to suit specific tasks. There's the field generation template, which is great for automatically populating fields on records.
Okay.
Then there's the flex template, which is more versatile and can be used for a wider range of tasks.
Okay.
And then there's the sales email template, which we've already talked about.
So it sounds like there's a template for pretty much anything you can imagine.
Yeah, Salesforce has really tried to cover all the bases.
That's great. And once you've created a template, can you go back and edit it later?
Once a prompt template is activated, it becomes immutable.
It's immutable.
Yeah, basically it can't be changed. This is for consistency.
Okay.
But you can always save it as a new version, make your changes, and then activate that new version.
So it's like version control.
Exactly.
Makes sense. You don't want people using outdated instructions.
Right.
Now, you mentioned something earlier about bringing your own large language model, BYOM. What does that actually mean?
So Salesforce offers these pre-integrated LLMs, which are great for getting started, but you might have some unique needs or data privacy requirements that require using a custom-trained model, and that's where ByWhale comes in.
So it's like bringing your own specialized tool to the AI workbench.
Exactly. It allows you to tailor the AI to your specific requirements.
That's cool. And how does this ByWhale concept tie into Model Builder?
Model Builder is basically your central hub for managing all your AI models in Salesforce.
Okay.
This is where you'd bring your own LLM connected to Salesforce and then use it to power all your fancy Agentforce applications.
And you can kind of keep tabs on everything there.
Exactly. You can monitor the model's performance, fine-tune its settings, track usage, and see if any errors pop up.
So Model Builder is like mission control for our AI models.
You got it. It gives you that centralized control and visibility.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get the big picture here, but now I want to dive into how Agentforce actually works in practice for users within Salesforce, what's happening behind the scenes to make all this AI magic happen.
So at the heart of Agentforce are 5 key components. You can think of them as the brain muscles, nervous system, language skills, and knowledge base of your AI agent.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
First, we have Copilot, which is what the user actually interacts with. It's like your always-on AI assistant living within Salesforce.
Okay, so Copilot is kind of like our point of contact.
Exactly. It listens to your requests and takes action based on your data and those instructions we talked about earlier.
Okay, and then what are those actions?
Actions are the specific tasks that Copilot can perform, things like summarizing a record, creating a task, sending an email, or even searching for information.
Gotcha. So actions are like the verbs, the things that Copilot actually did.
And Salesforce provides a bunch of standard actions right out of the box for all those common tasks.
So those are ready to go, no customization needed.
Exactly.
But we can also create custom actions, right, for those unique scenarios.
Yes, custom actions are where Agentforce really shines. You can use tools like Apex code flows or even those prompt templates we talked about to build these custom actions that are perfectly tailored to your needs.
So it's like taking Agentforce and molding it to fit your specific workflow.
Precisely, you're extending its capabilities to match your unique business processes.
That's powerful. And how do we keep all of these actions organized, both the standard ones and the custom ones?
That's where topics come in.
Right, topics, those are like categories or folders, right?
Yeah, exactly. Topics help organize your actions and provide context to Copilot so it knows which actions are relevant to a particular conversation.
So if I'm talking to Copilot about sales opportunities, it'll know to pull back actions related to creating a proposal or updating the opportunity stage.
Exactly. Topics help guide Copilot to make the most relevant and helpful choices.
And just be clear, we can create custom topics just like we can create custom actions.
Absolutely. You have complete control over how you structure your Agentforce topics.
That's fantastic. It really allows us to personalize Agentforce to fit our needs perfectly.
Yeah, customization is key.
Okay, so we've got our actions all organized into these topics, but how does Copilot actually understand what the user is asking? Isn't it just matching keywords?
No, it's much more sophisticated than that. Copilot uses something called the reasoning engine.
Reasoning engine sounds intense.
It leverages that LLM we talked about to analyze what the user is saying and figure out what they actually mean, what their intent is.
So it's like it's reading between the lines.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the context and intent behind the words.
That's impressive. And all of this is powered by the LLM.
Yes, the LLM is like the brain behind the whole operation.
So it's a chain reaction, user request, LLM interpretation, reasoning engine planning, and then Copilot action.
You nailed it. It's a powerful combination of AI capabilities working together seamlessly.
This is all incredibly fascinating. But now I want to dig a little deeper into those Copilot actions you mentioned earlier. We have the standard actions and the custom actions. Can you break down what makes the standard Copilot actions so useful?
So standard Copilot actions are like your preloaded toolkit. They're ready to go right out of the box without any customization needed.
So those are the workhorses, the actions that just about everyone would find valuable.
Exactly. They handle all those everyday tasks that are common across different departments and workflows, like summarizing records, creating tasks, sending emails, or even searching for information.
And because they're built by Salesforce, we can be pretty confident that they're secure and reliable.
Yeah, you can trust that they're going to work seamlessly with other Salesforce features.
That's a huge plus. But what about those times when we need something more unique, more tailored to our specific business processes?
That's where custom actions come in.
Okay, let's talk about those custom actions.
Custom Copilot actions are all about flexibility. They let you mold Agentforce to fit your exact needs. So if you have a unique sales process or need to integrate with a specific third-party application, custom actions are your best friend.
So we're essentially extending Agentforce's functionality to match our own unique way of working.
Precisely. And you can build these custom actions using tools that you're probably already familiar with, like Apex code flows or even those prompt templates we discussed earlier.
That's great. So it's not like we need to learn a whole new set of skills.
Nope. You can leverage your existing knowledge to build some pretty amazing things.
Okay, so once we have all these actions, both standard and custom, how do we keep them organized? How do we make sure Copilot knows which actions to use in a given situation?
Remember those topics we talked about earlier?
Yes.
They play a vital role in organizing your actions and providing context to Copilot.
Right. So they're like folders or categories that group related actions together.
Exactly. And they help Copilot understand which actions are most relevant to a particular conversation or task.
So if I'm talking to Copilot about customer support, it'll know to look for actions related to creating a case or escalating an issue.
You got it. Topics help guide Copilot to deliver the most appropriate and helpful response.
And just to confirm, we can create custom topics, just like we can create custom actions.
Absolutely. You have complete control over your Agentforce topics. You can structure them in a way that makes sense for your team and your workflows.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense, but I'm curious about how granular we can get with these custom actions. Is it really possible to make Agentforce do just about anything we need?
The complexity of your custom actions is really only limited by your imagination and your Salesforce org's capabilities.
So the sky's the limit.
Pretty much.
Can you give me a few examples of how these custom actions can really elevate our workflows? Let's start with a sales scenario.
Sure. Imagine you're a sales manager and you want Copilot to automatically generate a weekly sales report. You could create a custom action that pulls all the relevant data from opportunities accounts and compiles it into a nicely formatted report and then delivers it directly to your inbox every Monday morning.
That would save so much time and effort.
Exactly. No more manual reporting.
What about a scenario from the service side?
Let's say you're in customer support and want to streamline the process of handling product returns.
Okay.
You could build a custom action that guides the agent through the return process step by step.
Okay.
It could automatically update the case, generate a return shipping label, and even notify the warehouse team.
So it's not just about generating content, it's about automating entire processes.
Exactly. And it can make a huge difference in terms of efficiency and customer satisfaction.
This is pretty amazing, and I bet there are tons of use cases we haven't even thought of yet.
Oh, absolutely. The possibilities are pretty much endless, especially as Salesforce continues to add new features and capabilities to Agentforce.
Okay, so I'm sold on the power of custom actions. But now I want to know, how do we actually build these things? Are we talking hardcore coding?
Not necessarily. You have a few different options when creating custom Copilot actions.
Okay.
You can use something called invocable Apex classes, which are great for those complex actions that require intricate logic and integration.
So those are for the more advanced users.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with coding, Apex is a powerful tool.
Gotcha.
But you can also use auto-launched flows.
Flows.
Yeah, flows are perfect for those visually driven workflows where you want to drag, drop, and connect different elements to create a step-by-step process.
So flows are a bit more user-friendly.
Exactly. And you can even use those prompt templates we talked about earlier to trigger specific actions or generate content.
So there's flexibility in terms of how we build these custom actions.
Yes, it's about choosing the method that best aligns with your skills and the complexity of the action you're building.
I like that flexibility.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's say I have the brilliant idea for a custom action. I know exactly what I want it to do, but how do I actually make it a reality? What are the key steps involved?
It all starts with deciding which building blocks you're going to use. Are you going to go with Apex flows or prompt templates? That decision will depend on how complex your action is and how comfortable you are with each tool.
Okay, so let's say I'm a big fan of flows. I love the visual aspect and how easy they are to use. What would be my next steps?
You would head over to Flow Builder, which is your go-to tool for automating processes in Salesforce, and you would create a new auto-launched flow.
Auto-launched, meaning it can be triggered by something external.
Exactly like a user request to Copilot.
Gotcha. So I built my flow now.
Yep.
How do I connect it to Agentforce?
That's where Agent Builder comes in.
Agent Builder.
Yes, it's your control center for managing all your Copilot actions.
Okay.
Within Agent Builder, you'll create a new custom action and specify that it's triggered by a flow. You'll then link that action to the specific flow you just created.
So it's like creating this bridge between Agentforce and Flow Builder.
Perfect analogy. And here's an important point. You'll need to define the input and output parameters for your flow.
Right. Those inputs and outputs we talked about earlier.
Exactly. You need to tell the flow what data it should expect from Copilot and what information it should send back.
So for example, if my flow is generating a sales report, the input could be the desired date range, and the output would be the report data itself.
Precisely defining clear input and output parameters is crucial for ensuring that your custom action runs smoothly.
Okay, so I've connected my flow, defined my inputs and outputs. What's next?
Testing, testing, testing. Always test thoroughly before you release your custom action to the wild.
Of course, we don't want to unleash a buggy action on our users.
Exactly. And Agent Builder has this really cool feature called dynamic debugging.
Dynamic debugging, what's that?
It lets you see exactly what's happening behind the scenes when Copilot executes your custom action. It's a lifesaver for troubleshooting.
So if something goes wrong, we can actually see what went wrong.
You got it, and once you're confident that everything is working perfectly, you can deploy it to your users.
So it's all about careful planning, clear instructions, thorough testing, and then AI-powered productivity.
You nailed it. That's the recipe for success with custom Copilot actions.
I'm loving this, but as we build more and more of these custom actions, how do we make sure that we're not overloading the system? How do we monitor how much data we're using, especially with these large language models?
That's a great question, and that's where Einstein requests come in.
Einstein requests, what are those?
Think of them as the currency for using LLMs. Every time you send a request to an LLM, you're essentially spending Einstein requests.
Okay, so it's like we have an AI budget.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. The more complex the request, the more expensive it is in terms of Einstein requests.
Interesting. And how do we track our Einstein request usage?
Salesforce provides a dashboard where you can see how many requests you've used, how many you have left, and you can even break down your usage by different LLMs or applications.
So transparency is key.
Absolutely, you need to know where your requests are going.
For sure. And are there ways to be more efficient with our Einstein requests?
Yes, definitely. It all starts with being strategic about how you structure your prompts and your custom actions.
Okay.
Avoid making unnecessary calls to the LLM. If you can accomplish the task without using the LLM, do it. And when you do need to use the LLM craft your prompts to be super concise and specific.
So it's like writing a really tight email. You want to get your point across with as few words as possible.
Exactly. And you can also use techniques like caching to store and reuse LLM responses when it makes sense.
So if we're doing the same task over and over again, we don't need to keep asking the LLM for the same answer.
Exactly. You can save those responses and reuse them, which can significantly reduce your Einstein request usage.
That's clever. So it's all about being smart and efficient with our AI resources. This has been an amazing overview of Agentforce, and I'm already feeling inspired. But for those who are ready to dive in and get certified, what are the key things they should focus on as they're preparing for that Agentforce specialist exam?
I'd say first, master the fundamentals of AI. You don't need to be a data scientist, but you should have a solid understanding of basic concepts like machine learning, natural language processing, and the different types of AI models.
So lay that foundation.
Exactly. And then spend some quality time with Prompt Builder.
Okay.
Learn how to design those effective prompts, how to ground them with Salesforce data, and how to test and refine them until they're working perfectly.
Practice, practice, practice.
Yes, and speaking of practice, get your hands dirty with Agentforce itself, experiment with different actions, build a few custom actions, and just get a feel for how everything works in real-life scenarios.
Don't just read about it, do it.
Exactly. Hands-on experience is invaluable, and definitely familiarize yourself with the Einstein trust layer.
Right, so we're not just focusing on the technical stuff, but also on the ethical considerations of using AI.
Exactly. Responsible AI should always be top of mind.
Absolutely. And are there any resources you recommend for those who are studying for the exam?
Salesforce has some excellent documentation on Agentforce, and there are tons of online communities and study groups where you can connect with other people who are preparing for the exam.
To tap into that collective wisdom.
Exactly. There's no need to go it alone.
This has been an incredibly insightful discussion, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling much more confident about tackling this certification.
I hope so. It's a challenging exam, but with the right preparation, anyone can pass it.
Now we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive even deeper into the world of Agentforce with some practical tips and tricks for building those custom actions. Stay tuned.
For more deep dives into the exciting world of Salesforce, let's talk about some practical tips for creating effective custom Copilot actions. You know, it's one thing to have a great idea, but bringing it to life, that takes careful consideration.
That's true. Where do you even begin when you're ready to build your first custom action?
Well, I always recommend starting with a really clear definition of the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
What specific task or process are you hoping to automate or enhance with AI?
Right.
So once you have that sharp focus on the what, you can start thinking about the how.
Right. So starting with a well-defined objective.
Yes.
Exactly. Then what?
Then it's time to consider the different building blocks that are available for creating these custom Copilot actions. We touched on them earlier: Apex code flows and prompt templates. Each one has its own strengths and best use cases.
Yeah. Can you break those down a little bit more? Like when would you choose one over the others?
Okay, so Apex code, that's your powerhouse option. It gives you the most flexibility and control for those complex actions that require integration. So if you're comfortable with coding and need to perform some intricate operations or connect with external systems, Apex is the way to go.
Okay. So Apex is for the heavy lifting, so to speak.
Yeah, you got it.
What about flows? When are they the best option?
Flows are perfect for those visually driven workflows where you can just drag, drop, connect elements to create that step-by-step process. So if you're more of a visual learner, or if your custom action involves a series of logical steps, or, if then else conditions, flows are a great choice.
Flows are definitely known for their user friendliness.
For sure. Yeah.
And lastly, what about those prompt templates? When would you go with those?
Prompt templates are great for actions that involve mainly content generation, or for triggering other actions based on user input. So if
Yeah.
you need to, generate some text, summarize information, or maybe kick off other processes based on keywords or phrases, prompt templates can be really efficient.
So each building block has its own sweet spot depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's all about picking the right tool for the job.
Love it. And then once you've picked your tool, what's next?
Then you need to carefully define those inputs and outputs for your custom action.
Right, those inputs and outputs we talked about earlier, why are those so important again?
They're really important because they define that contract between Copilot and your custom action. The inputs specify the data that your action needs to receive from Copilot to actually perform its task. And then the outputs determine what information the action will send back to Copilot to either display to the user or to trigger subsequent actions.
So for instance, if we're building a custom action to generate a sales report, the inputs might include the desired date range, the specific metrics to include in the report, and the output would be the actual report data itself.
Exactly. That's a great example. Having those clear inputs and outputs is super important for ensuring that your custom action runs smoothly and delivers those expected results.
All this talk about custom actions makes me think about those Einstein requests. How do custom Copilot actions factor into our Einstein request usage?
Yeah, that's a really important thing to consider because, as you're building these custom actions, you need to be mindful of their potential impact on your Einstein request consumption. Every interaction with an LLM, even those triggered by your custom actions, they all use up Einstein requests.
Right, so a poorly designed custom action could really eat up our Einstein request budget.
It could, so you really want to think about optimizing your prompts and workflows within those custom actions to be as efficient as possible.
Okay, so some tips for designing efficient custom actions.
Yeah, definitely. So first, avoid unnecessary calls to the LLM if you can achieve the same outcome without actually invoking the LLM. Do that. And when you do need to use the LLM, make sure your prompts are really concise and specific. You want to get your point across with the least amount of data possible.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly. And you can also look into techniques like caching,
Hmm.
which basically lets you store and reuse LLM responses when appropriate so that you're not making the same request over and over again.
That's smart, being resourceful with those requests.
Yeah, for sure. And now I actually want to switch gears a bit and talk about something that's becoming a really critical skill in the world of AI prompt design.
Yeah, prompt design. It's more than just writing a simple question or instruction for the AI, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really becoming an art and a science. It's all about crafting those effective prompts that get you the exact response you want from that LLM.
So it's like learning how to speak the AI's language.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so how do we design effective prompts? Where do we even begin?
Always start by clearly defining the task or the goal that you want to achieve.
Right.
What information are you looking for? What output do you need from the AI? Once you have that clear objective, you can start formulating that prompt.
So similar to defining inputs and outputs, we need to be super clear about what we want from the AI.
Exactly. Clarity is key. And then you want to think about the persona or the tone that you want the AI to adopt. Do you want it to sound formal, casual,
Academic.
helpful, maybe even humorous?
I can see how that would be really important if you're generating content that's going to be seen by customers.
Definitely the tone can make a huge difference in how your message is received.
Okay, so define the goal, set the tone, anything else.
Yeah, context is really important. Don't assume that the AI knows everything. Give us some background information, some definitions, maybe even some examples to help it understand the task at hand.
So setting the stage for the AI.
Exactly. You want to give it everything it needs to succeed.
I like that. And lastly, don't be afraid to experiment.
Yes, prompt design is an iterative process. You're going to try different prompts, analyze the results, and then refine your prompts based on what's working.
So there's no magic formula. It's a process of trial and error.
For sure.
What about some common mistakes people make when designing prompts? What should we try to avoid?
One of the biggest mistakes is being too vague or ambiguous. Avoid those open-ended prompts that can lead to responses that are irrelevant or just unexpected.
So be specific.
Yeah. Another mistake is providing either too little or too much information. You want to find that sweet spot where you're giving the AI enough context without overwhelming it with irrelevant details.
It's all about balance.
And you also want to watch out for biases. AI models are trained on massive amounts of data, and that data can sometimes reflect those biases that exist in the real world.
Right.
So you need to be really careful about the language that you use in your prompts and make sure that you're not inadvertently introducing those biases into your AI outputs.
That's such an important point. As we rely more and more on AI, we need to make sure that it's being used ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely. Ethical AI is paramount.
This conversation about prompt design has been really eye-opening. I think I'm finally starting to understand the nuance and strategy involved in crafting those effective prompts.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just asking a question.
But even with the best prompts and custom actions, things don't always go as planned, right? How do we troubleshoot Agentforce when it's not behaving the way it should?
Troubleshooting is part of the AI journey. It's going to happen, but the good news is that there are ways to tackle those problems and even learn from them.
Okay, so let's put on our detective hats. Where do we even begin when something goes wrong with Agentforce? What are the signs that we might have a problem?
The first step is recognizing that something is off. Maybe you're seeing an error message, or the Copilot has gone silent, or maybe it's generating an output that's just completely wrong or irrelevant.
Okay, so those are the red flags. Once we've spotted a problem, what do we do next?
The next step is gathering information. You need to understand exactly what happened, what steps the user took, what input they provided, what output they received. It's like investigating a crime scene.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, and once we have all the facts, we can start digging deeper. And one of the most valuable resources for troubleshooting Agentforce is Agent Builder's logging capabilities.
Right, Agent Builder. What kind of logs does it keep, and why are those so helpful for troubleshooting?
Agent Builder keeps a log of all the interactions between the user and the Copilot, the prompts that were used, the actions that were triggered, the data that was exchanged, even the responses generated by that LLM. So it's like having a transcript of the entire conversation.
Oh, wow. So we can actually see what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And often you can pinpoint the exact moment where the error occurred, what type of error it was, and even get some clues as to what might have caused it.
That's so helpful. And another thing you mentioned earlier, double checking those input and output parameters, especially for flows.
Yes, especially when you're working with flows, those inputs and outputs are crucial. Even a tiny typo or a missing value can throw everything off.
So attention to detail is key.
Absolutely. And if you're really stuck, there's another tool that can be super helpful. Salesforce's platform debug logs.
Platform debug logs, we touched on those earlier. Can you explain those a bit more? What makes them so powerful?
Platform debug logs are like the ultimate record of everything that's happening within your Salesforce org. They capture a huge amount of information, so if you're dealing with a really tricky problem, those debug logs can help you get to the root cause.
So when the agent builder logs aren't enough, we bring out the big guns.
Exactly. They can be a lifesaver. Okay, so let's talk about some specific troubleshooting scenarios that you might run into with Agentforce and how to approach them. One common issue is when the Copilot is generating an incorrect or unexpected output.
Yeah, that's frustrating. What causes that?
It could be a few things. It could be that your prompt is ambiguous or that you're not providing enough context to the AI, or it could even be that there are some biases in the training data that are affecting the output.
Okay, so how do we troubleshoot that?
Start by taking a close look at your prompt. Is it clear, concise, specific? Does it provide enough background information for the AI to understand what you're asking?
Right.
If the prompt seems fine, then check your input data. Is it accurate? Is it complete? Is it aligned with what your prompt is expecting?
So double check the prompts and the data.
And if you're still not seeing the issue, dig into those agent builder logs and look for any clues. Look at the actions that were triggered, the data that was exchanged, the LLM's responses. You might spot something that helps you pinpoint the problem.
It's like detective work.
It is. It's all about piecing together the puzzle.
What are some other common scenarios?
Another common issue is when Copilot fails to trigger a custom action.
Okay, what causes that?
That could be a few things. Maybe your custom action is misconfigured in Agent Builder, or there's an error in your Apex code or flow, or maybe the user who's trying to trigger the action doesn't have the right permissions.
Okay, permissions can always be tricky.
Yeah, so how would you troubleshoot this? First, double check your configuration in Agent Builder. Make sure that the action is enabled, that it's linked to the correct flow or Apex class, and that it's associated with the right topic.
To make sure everything is connected properly.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then scrutinize your code, look for any syntax errors, logic flaws, or missing variables.
So carefully review that code.
And of course, don't forget to check the user's permissions, make sure that they have access to everything they need.
Always a good idea to check permissions.
For sure, these troubleshooting tips are super helpful, but troubleshooting is really a learning process in itself. By analyzing those issues, you're not only solving the immediate problem, but you're also gaining insights that'll help you avoid those problems in the future.
That's a great point, turning those mistakes into learning opportunities.
Yeah. And now let's move on to another exciting aspect of Agentforce Model Builder.
Model Builder. This is where we can really start to customize our AI models.
Yeah, Model Builder is where the magic happens. It's your workshop for building, training, and managing AI models that are tailor-made for your specific needs.
And we can bring our own large language models, right?
Yes, those BYLMs we talked about earlier, but you can also use those pre-built Salesforce managed models if you're not quite ready to build your own.
So we have options. Let's say I'm ready to dive in and build my own AI model. What are the key steps involved?
The first step is to choose the right model type. What are you trying to solve? Are you trying to predict something like customer churn or the likelihood of an opportunity closing, or are you trying to generate content like a personalized email or a summary of a case?
So different model types for different tasks.
Exactly. Once you've figured out your model type, it's time to gather and prepare your data. This is a crucial step because the quality of your data will directly impact how well your model performs.
Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Exactly. You want to make sure that your data is clean, accurate, and relevant to the problem you're trying to solve.
Okay, so the data is ready. What's next?
Now it's time to train your model. This is where the AI actually starts to learn. You're basically feeding it all that data and letting it figure out the patterns and relationships within that data.
It's like sending your AI model to boot camp.
I love that analogy. And just like boot camp, it takes time and effort. You might need to tweak some parameters or try different data sets to get the best results.
So it's not just set it and forget it. It's a process of continuous improvement.
Absolutely. You want to keep refining your model until it's performing at its best.
Okay, so the model is trained and it's working great. What happens next?
Time to deploy it.
So we just flip a switch and the AI magic starts happening.
It's pretty close to that. Model Builder makes it super easy to deploy your models either to specific users or to your entire organization.
So we can control who has access to this AI power.
Exactly. And once your model is deployed, you can monitor its performance, see how people are using it, and make adjustments as needed.
So that continuous improvement cycle is always in play.
Always.
Model Builder is pretty amazing. I'm starting to see the potential here.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool for harnessing AI within Salesforce.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, those ethical considerations with AI. As we're building these increasingly sophisticated models, why is it so important to keep ethics in mind?
That's probably the most important thing to consider. AI is a powerful tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. So we need to be really intentional about how we develop and deploy AI systems and make sure that they're being used ethically and responsibly.
So it's not just about what AI can do, but what it should do.
Exactly. We need to be mindful of those potential biases that can creep into our models, protect people's privacy, and make sure that AI is being used to benefit society as a whole.
Just shared responsibility.
It is, and that's why Salesforce created the Einstein Trust Layer.
Right. Can you remind us of some of the key principles of the Einstein Trust Layer?
The Einstein Trust Layer is all about transparency, accountability, fairness, and privacy. Users should understand how AI is being used, what data is being collected. We need to have clear lines of responsibility for how AI systems are developed and deployed. We need to make sure those models are free from bias and are being used equitably. And of course, we need to protect people's data and use it responsibly.
Those are all incredibly important principles.
Yeah, they should really guide everything we do with AI.
This conversation about ethical AI has been really thought-provoking. I'm glad that Salesforce is taking this seriously with the Einstein Trust Layer.
It's definitely a step in the right direction.
I think our listeners are walking away from this deep dive with a much deeper understanding of Agentforce, its capabilities, and the importance of using it responsibly. Now, before we move on to our final segment, do you have any parting words of advice for those who are eager to jump in and start building their own AI-powered applications in Salesforce?
I would say don't be afraid to experiment. The best way to learn is by doing so, just dive in, try different things, and see what you can create.
So embrace that beginner's mindset and just start playing around.
Exactly. Have fun with it, and you'll be amazed by what you can accomplish.
Great advice. Now let's move on to our final segment, where we'll explore some of the exciting possibilities that lie ahead for Agentforce. The future of AI in Salesforce is looking pretty bright.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring all the amazing things that Agentforce can do. But now I want to shift gears and talk about something that's really important: the ethical considerations of working with AI.
Oh, yeah, for sure. As AI becomes more powerful, we really need to make sure that we're using it responsibly and ethically.
It's one thing to build these really cool intelligence systems, but it's another thing entirely to make sure that they're being used for good.
Exactly.
So what are some of the biggest ethical concerns that come to mind when we're talking about AI, especially in the context of Agentforce and Salesforce?
Well, one of the biggest ones is bias. AI models are trained on huge amounts of data, and that data can often reflect the biases that already exist in society.
Right.
So if we're not careful, those biases can actually be amplified by our AI systems, and that can lead to some really unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
How can we prevent that? How can we mitigate bias in AI, especially when we're building and deploying these systems in Salesforce?
It really starts with awareness. We need to be aware of the potential biases in our data and take steps to address them.
Yep.
That might involve carefully curating our training data or using techniques to identify and mitigate bias in the models themselves. And we also need to constantly monitor the outputs of our AI systems to make sure that they're not perpetuating harmful stereotypes or engaging in discriminatory practices.
So it's kind of a three-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Be mindful of the data, scrutinize the models, and keep a close eye on the results.
Yeah, exactly. It's an ongoing process.
What are some other ethical considerations we should be thinking about?
Privacy is a huge one. Agentforce and other AI systems often work with sensitive personal data, and it's our responsibility to make sure that that data is handled responsibly, securely, and in compliance with all the relevant privacy regulations.
That's really important, especially when we're talking about customer data in a CRM.
For sure, we need to have those strong security measures in place, obtain informed consent from individuals, and be transparent about how their data is being used.
Transparency is a good segue into another ethical consideration, right? Users need to understand how these AI systems are working, how their data is being used, and how decisions are being made.
Exactly. Black box AI, where the decision-making process is opaque and unexplainable, that can really erode trust, and it raises some serious ethical questions.
So it's not just about building AI that works, it's also about building AI that is understandable and accountable.
Absolutely.
And then there's the bigger picture, right? We need to think about the impact of AI on society as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. As AI becomes more prevalent, we need to make sure that it's not displacing workers or exacerbating inequalities or being used for harmful purposes.
It's a lot to think about. But it's clear that ethics needs to be a top priority as we develop and deploy these AI systems.
It has to be.
I'm glad that Salesforce is taking this seriously with the Einstein Trust Layer.
Yeah, the Einstein Trust Layer is a good example of how companies can proactively address these ethical concerns. It provides that framework for responsible AI development and use with a focus on transparency, accountability, fairness, and privacy.
That's good to hear. And I think our listeners are walking away from this deep dive with a much better understanding of Agentforce, its capabilities, and the importance of using it responsibly.
I hope so. It's been a great conversation.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into the world of Agentforce, and I'm so excited about all the possibilities that AI is bringing to the Salesforce ecosystem. We've covered a lot of ground today, from those core components to the power of custom actions, the art of prompt design, and of course the crucial importance of ethical considerations.
It's been a great overview.
Thanks for joining us and sharing your expertise.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive and feel inspired to unleash the power of AI in Salesforce while always remembering to use it responsibly.
Until next time, happy building. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe to the CRM Position channel for more deep dives into the exciting world of Salesforce.